On Sprue Review. My name's Violet Sun, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Deimos Pattern Rhino, a single vehicle miniature by Games Workshop for the Horus Heresy. Now this kit's proved pretty popular since released, and it's been a little bit hard to get hold of, but I was lucky enough to pick one up a few days ago whilst visiting Element Games in Nottingham. This isn't a paid promotion or anything, but if you're in Nottingham they're worth a visit. The staff are really friendly and they've got a good range of products, particularly an impressive amount of different paint brands. You're spoilt for choice for paints. That said, let's get on with the review and take a look at the box to begin with. This kit, like many in the new Horus Heresy range, has this new style of composited image as the artwork for the front, which I really like. Obviously you've got several layers, you've got kind of a false foreground, the actual miniature, some kind of flavour miniatures, fire effects, extra terrain, a moody sky, really selling the atmosphere of this battle, which I think looks really, really nice. I particularly like the kind of faux motion blur they've put onto the tracks. It really makes the Rhino look a bit more alive, for want of a better term. I do think the directional lighting is a little bit overdone on this particular example, and it's trying to make it look like it's in this very bright yellowy kind of atmosphere. But it does wash out the paint job on this particular model quite badly and makes it look less impressive, I'll say that. And other than the art, obviously we have the new Horus Heresy logo and which army and model you're actually getting in the box. Now the back of the box is a much more standard affair, something sort of style that's been around for many, many years now. A nice image of the studio painted miniature, supposedly at the same scale as it is, which is quite hard to do with the perspective and everything, but I think that's a pretty good representation of the size of the model. Details on a few optional weapon options, and yeah, just some more good views of the tank kit so you know quite what you're getting. Although you don't actually get a view of the rear of the tank, but I guess that's kind of not the most interesting part of it to be showing. Also, a couple of suggested paint schemes for the model, which I always like to see on the outside of the box. Very helpful for people that want to get the paints whilst they're getting the kit. So yeah, I think this is a nice box. Pretty eye-catching graphics, and yeah, it sells the Rhino as a speedy little transport. Now we've had a little overview of the box, let's have a look at what's inside. Now you get quite a lot in the box. Firstly, a set of transfers specifically for Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus for the Horus Heresy, which is quite nice. The instruction booklet on how to build the kit, which we'll come back to in a minute. And 3 sprues, kind of a main sprue and then 2 small ones. There's also a reinforcing box inside the box, which I think is kind of needed here, just because the height of the sprues isn't enough to fill the box size they've gone for. So this gives it a little extra rigidity and helps the kit arrive intact. And of course, with it being cardboard, it's at least recyclable, which is pretty good. Before we get too distracted by the kit, let's have a look at the instructions, see if there's anything interesting in here. Now it's a nice big booklet, which is good because it means you can actually see the parts fairly well, although I will say the printing on this is a little murky. I think because it's black and white, and I don't know, it just feels a little lower quality than some I've seen from Games Workshop previously. I don't think people struggle because the parts are quite nicely labelled and should be easy to find on the sprue. Just feels as though the lighting on the 3D rendering that was used to make this was perhaps a little off. At least for some of these, they seem to be in the shadow and you can't really see what's going on quite so well. For anyone who's built the previous Rhino kit, the construction is pretty familiar. And really, there's only a couple of pages of instructions, as it doesn't have that many parts. That is until you get to the weapon options for the front hatches and other accessory options, of which there's quite a few. In fact, about a third of the instructions is telling how to put together different hatch options and the gunner and all the different weapons that he can use. So yeah, it's kind of hard to give you a parts count on this due to the wide range of options, but somewhere in the range of 40 to 50 parts, so not too bad considering it is a whole tank. As we've seen with other of the Horus Heresy kits, there's no kind of further painting guidance or rules included in this booklet. It's just how to build the model and nothing else. As such, I'm going to give this instruction booklet a bit of a meh score. The pages where you're doing more complicated construction, the gunner and such, are quite clear, but some of the pages are, as I say, oddly murky and not the greatest. Now we've taken a look at those, let's have a look at the sprues themselves. Now I'm going to start off with this main sprue. It's the biggest one, it's got the most parts on, so let's dive in. I'm going to start with these side pieces, which if you built a Rhino kit ever, other than the very original Rhino kit, this side piece is going to look very familiar. It looks pretty much identical to the existing Rhino kit, the pre-date set. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, as all Rhinos are meant to have quite a lot in common in the lore. Yeah, it does feel odd that they didn't redesign the crew compartment at all, really. And the same goes for the rear hatch door. It looks absolutely identical to the Mark IIc version of the Rhino. Where this kit does start to deviate from the previous Rhino kit, it's the way these side panels have been designed, which I think are quite interesting. This big central piece has been cut out and is on a separate sprue. Now I think this is because this sprue is going to end up being used on many other kits. Things like the Predator and the Vindicator in this style have different side pieces, and I think this has been removed to allow for different drop-in panels to go into these sides, which is a really smart design move because you don't need a bunch of plastic here with more plastic stuck on top. It's just easier to have a drop-in side panel with whatever detailing you need for that version on the Rhino hull. This sprue also has the exhausts on it. I really like this design of exhaust, and they've done a really nice job of getting this heat shield looking good. As I've mentioned in other videos, this is kind of an awkward thing to do in a plastic mould. But this one looks, yeah, pretty nice. The holes around this, the very edge, are a little bit odd, but they look, I'm sure they'll look fine once they're painted up. Another part that's been significantly changed from the previous Rhino kit, the tracks, with this much more robust, plain style being used rather than the more ornate ones that are on the 40k kit. I quite like this styling. Definitely has the more minimalist feel of the Horus Heresy down in even these small details. One part of the interior that has been redesigned is this crew bulkhead that sits between the kind of driver's compartment and where the troops sit, just with a different style of terminal and a slightly different door design, which I think is a nice little detail, as when you flip down the rear door, this is kind of the part of the vehicle you see the most. The floor's also been slightly redesigned with this texture now not going quite all the way to the edge, and some little bolt heads and stuff, just adding a lot more detail for those that like to paint the interiors of their tanks. Sprue has a few more small details, like the little headlamp clusters that they found on the Rhino tanks. These are very similar to the previous design. I think maybe a little more refined. The detail seems a little finer on them. But yeah, they look very familiar. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this sprue in the future. Pretty much any of the Deimos pattern vehicles. I think this is going to be what comes as the main part of those kits. So let's take a look at the sprue that makes this kit in particular a Rhino. And these are the kind of drop-in parts that I mentioned for the sides. Obviously this has the big hole for the side door hatches to be fitted on, which of course the Marines use to get in and out of, as well as the rear hatch. The split of these has been done quite cleverly, with the join line being underneath the exhausts. So even if that join line isn't completely seamless, you shouldn't really be able to notice it, because the exhaust's going to be in the way, and yeah, that's a very smart move. Another part that makes me think that this layout of the sprues is pretty smart is this top piece. The original Rhino top piece had kind of the top parts of the tracks and a few other pieces all built into one part, and it didn't always fit particularly well. Having them all be separate pieces is definitely going to be a little more work to put it together, but should allow for a much better fit. This will also be useful for doing things like the Predator, where they'll be able to do a whole new top panel with the kind of turret mount, rather than having to do a drop-in plate that fits onto this part and other plates have to awkwardly cover up things. It'll be able to be just a separate piece with all the detail all pre-built into it, which I think is very cool. I mentioned the doors. They are looking very nicely detailed, and I have checked these are the same size as the resin ones, so you'll be able to use the resin chapter upgrades on this kit that Forge's been producing for the resin version of the Deimos Rhino, which has now gone out of production. And I believe the top hatch doors are the same size as the regular Rhino kit, so if you have like the Command Rhino upgrade or a chapter upgrade that has top doors, because those used to be a thing, I think, those should also fit on this kit as well. And it's nice to see that the dimensions are staying close enough that you can use older parts still. Another very characteristically Rhino part of this kit is this front panel with the kind of double viewing slits and armoured compartment doors that the Rhinos had since the very first one. It's a nice callback to the original kit. You also get these step plates that help the Marines get in and out the side doors. The detail on these is very fine and looks pretty good to my eyes. And then we get the turret hatch slash crew gunner sprue, which also has things like the dozer blade and the hunter killer missile and all the other fun upgrades you can give the Rhino. Now, I've already taken quite an in-depth look at this sprue in my review of the Land Raider Spartan, which you can find in the link up here or wherever YouTube has moved the links to these days. As such, I'm not really going to go through it again. There's a huge amount of options on here, and yeah, it's nice that you're getting literally everything you can put on the vehicle in the kit all in one go, rather than having to go and buy another resin upgrade kit or do conversions. And of course you get a lot of spares, because you can never fit all of these weapons onto your vehicles, so you end up with, I don't know, some multi-melters or heavy flamers to use in a conversion another day. So yeah, I think this is a fantastic kit. It's a real nice, weirdly an update on the Rhino kit, and also in entirely in-universe ways backdating of the kit at the same time. I think the updated part breakdown of this version of the Rhino is far superior to the previous kit, and should make construction much easier, as I say, especially applying the top plate, which is kind of the most awkward bit of the original Rhino kit. It's been broken down into more pieces and should allow for a much better fit. I also think this is a nice preview of the fact that we're going to get other Deimos patterns. I think only the Predator has been announced as being a plastic kit that's being released soon, but I can see almost every version of Rhino upgraders, say things like Vindicators in particular, would be very easy to do with this version of the kit. And who knows, maybe we'll see some new ancient versions of the Rhino that just exist in the Horus Heresy. I would be interested to see what creative new ideas can be done on the Rhino. Now, I normally convert every single kit I buy, but I think this one is going to just be built almost as is. Obviously, I have a Horus Heresy army, so I need at least a couple of Rhinos to put my troops in. I think this first one I'm going to build up specifically for my Templar squad, as they're angry men and they've got places to be, so they definitely need a transport to whiz them around the battle. But I don't think that's going to involve much conversion work at all. I might pilfer some bits from the 40k Black Templars kit just to make it a little bit more ornate than a very standard Rhino, but I think most of it's just going to be as is, straight out of the box, just with a few different transfers and maybe a slightly different paint scheme. I haven't quite decided whether I'm just going to go bright yellow or if I'm going to have more black with just a little bit of yellow on it. I think this is kind of one of the fun bits about the Horus Heresy, is kind of having the freedom within the legions to play with the colour schemes, because they're such big organisations. You can kind of get away with doing your own spin on the classic colour schemes. If you've picked this kit up and are doing something interesting with it, like some other conversions, I'd love to hear about it. I think this kit's got a lot of potential for being built into all kinds of wonderful things. The parts breakdown make it pretty adaptable. And if not, if you've just got one of these and you're building it as is, I'd love to hear what legion you're painting up as. Seems like some Horus Heresy legions are getting a lot of love and some are not so popular at the moment, but we'll see how that develops as more kits are released. If you found this review useful, giving it a like would be much appreciated. And of course, I've got many other reviews already on my channel in a similar style. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm releasing, subscribing to the channel is the quickest way to get notifications of new releases. Thank you very much for watching, and happy hobbying.